Hello, my name is Antonio Papano. I'm a patron of the Keyboard Charitable Trust. I was born in Britain. I've lived and studied in America, and now divide my time mostly as music director of the Royal Opera House Covent Garden here in London and the Santa Cecilia Orchestra and Chorus in Rome. Music has no borders, and the Keyboard Trust neither. Over its long history, it has presented young concert pianists of 34 different nationalities, offering them performing opportunities internationally and now globally by means of these internet broadcasts. All are ready to grace the great concert halls. I now invite you to hear them in conversation and in concert. Please remember their names, then ask the Keyboard Trust to send them to perform where you are. Then you too will have helped to accomplish our true mission. Thank you very much.
Was a beautiful performance of the first page of Alcan's Opus 15.
Thank you.
I'm delighted to present to you Mark Weiner in the video podcast for the Keyboard Charitable Trust. You're our star pianist, and
Very much.
You're especially known as a pioneer of music that is not often played. You are preparing your fourth CD.
That's right, yes.
Female composer Chaminade.
Yes.
What were your other 3 CDs?
The first thing I did was the music of Sigismund Thalberg, who was Liszt's only serious rival. The second thing I did was some fairly rare operatic paraphrases of Liszt. The last thing I did was the Opus 35 studies of Alcan. And as you say, the next thing is the music of Cécile Chaminade, because I wanted to do something with which I wouldn't be sweating enormously.
For a change.
Exactly, yes.
And together with that, you're also chairman of Liszt and Alcan Society.
That's right.
How do you manage it all?
My sins. Well, just trying to split time between tasks sensibly and reasonably, and taking it in my stride. No, but it's great fun to be able to do things and, keep the torch alive in that respect.
Talking of keeping the torch alive, being devil's advocate here, may I ask you what drew you to the music that, let's say, perhaps is forgotten or maybe even not too well known in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there is a good reason for that.
Well, I think what initially drew me to, and it really started with Alcan, I should say. I mean, my first favourite composers were Beethoven, then Liszt, Rachmaninoff, and it wasn't the fact it was underknown, it was just because it was Alcan's music. That really was the beginning for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the strangeness of it, the complexity, the total sense of grappling with odds at times. and a real powerful, original voice, quite divorced from his contemporaries. I mean, of course, no man is an island, but I was just absolutely captivated from the beginning. Of course, this led me on to other byways in music. So, you know, I've played a great deal of Godowsky and Medtner. And that's sort of how it began. And I should also say the majority of things I do concert-wise are tending to focus around these forgotten byways of music. Mm-hmm. Of course, I can't present an entire program of unknown literature because that's a big, dangerous gamble. But I'm often asked, can you play some Alcan or your Liszt or Thalberg? And that really is nice. And if you do present this music to audiences, you do have to give them a contemporary framework to which to compare it, for want of better words.
Well, that's one of the things that came to my mind as you were playing, is that once you know the surroundings in which Chopin, let's say, was creating, and Chopin and Alcan were next door neighbors, yes. They knew each other extremely well, they were each other confidants. So yes. Actually, you realize Chopin's music at a slightly different angle.
Absolutely.
Once you know.
And that, in many respects, can be one of the most fascinating thing about this kind of work. I mean, particularly going into, I've made a fairly thorough investigation of music of the late 1830s, early 1840s recently, and looking at works by people like Doehler, Méraud, Henselt, you sort of see patterns and you see things that crop up in Chopin ballades, and you think, well, this is from before the Chopin ballades. It means nothing, and it's not a question of who stole what from whom, but it just puts into perspective a greater understanding of the actual evolution of not just music but piano writing, because there was a big boom. The piano got bigger, they got louder, the strings got thicker.
They got wider.
Exactly, we had a bigger compass. Dating some of Alcan's lesser known works from the early medieval period, sometimes the only thing we can go by is the actual restriction of the compass, and if he uses a bottom C or not, or sometimes a bottom A. But yes, in that respect, putting the famous composers into this clearer perspective is really fascinating and very stimulating. And sometimes it actually prompts me to want to play something that has been played to death, just because I might have a different angle from doing this.
That's right. Well, that's just fascinating. You're doing something similar for the Keyboard Charitable Trust at the Wigmore Hall as our prize winner this year.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your program, why you chose it, and maybe show us a couple of highlights?
Well, I think I really had to stick to my guns when it came to being offered the Wigmore so kindly by you, and so I decided to really not compromise. I am playing some famous pieces. I'm opening, I'll tell you in order, I'm opening with the Benediction Sermon from Benvenuto Cellini of Berlioz, set by Liszt, and it's a 6.5 minute piece, which is a really powerful, sort of very public opening, and it's marvelous. I think it's very good. And then I'm doing these Trois morceaux dans le genre pathétique of Alcan, the Opus 15 pieces, the first of which I just played the first page of for you. They are entrancing pieces. I remember when I was planning the program, I was thinking, well, I have to play some Alcan, but what do I play? And these kept sort of looking at me and haunting my thoughts, and I thought, okay, let's learn them and see how I feel. And they are marvellous. The first one is entitled Aime-moi, Love Me, and the second one, Le Vent, the wind. And the last one, Morte, dead, but it's a feminine adjective. And these titles seem to be a sort of rather enigmatic on first encounter. However, I can dispel the mystery. Just a few years ago, a whole batch of letters cropped up in a library in Madrid, and they were written to one of his closest friends, and they date a span, I think it's about 40 or 50 years.
Amazing.
So they all came to light at once. And within one of these letters, he speaks of 3 new caprices which he is writing, which shan't be gay. And he had already written, it was 2 sets by then, which were very upbeat and very much pieces of the time. Odd, flickers of originality in there. But these really were something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same letter, he speaks of a lady who was deeply in love with him and with whom he was rather indifferent. And he speaks of her dying after a fairly sudden illness, and he didn't bid her farewell on her deathbed. And he describes it as un souvenir that he has, this memory.
Mm-hmm.
And how he would give his last drop of blood to bid her farewell on her deathbed. Now, this is really powerful stuff. This is a letter from 1835. These pieces were published originally as trois études dans le genre pathétique. No, they weren't. It was trois grandes études. The title later on changed to Souvenirs, trois morceaux, so memories.
Mm-hmm.
And this program sort of fits that scheme of events in a sense, and it just can't be coincidence. We know it's Opus 15 that he was writing,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that dispels some of the mystery around the titles, and it highlights the sort of dramatic narrative that underlines the music. So it's fascinating things like that just resurface from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
and I relish that. After the interval, I am playing a fantasy of Sigismund Thalberg, his most famous fantasy, on Rossini's opera Moses in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's marvellous because it's the fullest embodiment of the so-called 3-hand effect,
Yes.
which Liszt and many others imitated ad nauseam, Liszt aside. And then I'm doing 2 nocturnes of Chopin, the Opus 48 nocturnes, which are, I feel, too rarely done together. People often just play the first one. And I think they work rather nicely together. Plus, we need some Chopin. And then I'm closing the program with the Grande Fantaisie on Norma of Liszt. And within this piece, I said Liszt aside earlier, he did use the so-called 3-hand effect many times, but very ingeniously and never the same way twice. And he uses this effect in that piece. So I wanted, and I've never done it before when I've put these pieces together, just so they can be not scrutinized, but sort of compared. You know what I mean. And so yes, it's stuff that reflects on the work I've done recording-wise, and it's sort of who I am at the moment.
Brings everything together.
Yes, it does, and I wanted to keep some sort of thread of continuity. One thing I realised the other day talking to a friend is the fact that they were all born within 3 years of each other. Chopin 1810, Liszt 1811, Thalberg 1812, and Alcon 1813. So that's... If no one else can find any unity, there's some.
There is some there. May I just ask you to play perhaps another extract for us from one of the pieces of Opus 15? Maybe the second one, The Wind?
Yes, of course.
It's quite an extraordinary sound world.
Needs a little work.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's fascinating how often descriptive Alkan's music can be.
Yes, explicitly.
Yes. And it brings to mind the composers before him, like Rameau and Couperin, for instance, which were also rather descriptive.
Yes, and sometimes he has been criticised for writing mere program music. Program music is often looked down upon. Don't know why. His music musically furrows much deeper than that. The difficult thing with Alkan is that one needs to know a great deal of it before making a sweeping judgment. So you can take 5 or 10 pieces and still not have any idea of who he is. And this piece is incredibly different, vastly different to things he was writing in the 1860s, where he's extremely sort of abrasive, neoclassical, Stravinskian with a sort of demonic romantic undertone. But yes, critics of the time who heard him playing this piece in his concerts alongside Chopin and Liszt describe how he varies all the sounds and all the howlings of the wind in the most marvelous manner. And yes, this particular piece, incidentally, did enjoy a rare vogue in the early 20th century. It was played by pianists such as Ada Laverne, who actually played it at the Wigmore Hall, and Harold Bauer. And I believe there's a piano roll by Harold Bauer that's cut because there's only so much paper you can fit on one roll inside a pianola. So it did enjoy a very brief sort of a vogue around it, and it's one of the few pieces that Alkan was remembered for in the early 20th century.
That's wonderful. And now it's going to be performed again at Wigmore Hall by you. It's very exciting for us.
Well, yes, and I have a feeling that the surroundings and the acoustic of that place will be a very gratiating, the word, place to play it in.
It will be, certainly. I really look forward to it.
Me too.
May I ask you just one more question?
Yes.
I try to do that in podcasts because it's nice to talk a little bit about something else but music.
Yes.
Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything to relax? Is there particular things that feed your musical imagination?
Yes. I mean, I enjoy reading a great deal. I'm fascinated with antiquarian books, for that matter, and I mean, I collect a lot of, we said we wouldn't talk about music, I collect a lot of antiquarian scores and early editions, sometimes firsts if I'm lucky, and that has gone over into fine bindings of literature. Apart from that, I mean, I enjoy the countryside, nature, cats a great deal. So really, I try to sort of maintain a simple existence aside from the piano, because I mean this is complicated enough, as you know. So for one's sanity, yes, I try to sort of balance things out so that I can sleep at night.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much for taking part in this podcast, for your beautiful playing, and I cannot wait to hear your program.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it too.